This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, your daily source for the essential news in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. Here's what you need to know for today, Tuesday, April 15th. Before we get started, a quick update to Brian Barletta's article from last week, The Impact Spotify's Video Has on Publishers. Since the original publication, further clarification has been added to the piece, specifically to the section discussing how adding a video podcast through Megaphone or Spotify for Creators can cause an entire podcast to be cached inside Spotify. For clarification's sake, if a podcast is not hosted on Megaphone or Spotify for Creators, manually logging into either platform and uploading a single episode does not trigger the entire podcast being cached, and it will continue to operate as normal. For our first story, interview Mike Wright and Jason Moore of the Fantasy Footballers. While I was in Chicago for Evolutions by Podcast Movement, I sat down with two of the hosts of the daily podcast, The Fantasy Footballers, which celebrates its 10th anniversary this year, in addition to joining an exclusive distribution partnership with SiriusXM in January. Wright and Moore reflect on the strides podcasting has taken in 10 years, from the early days of them sweating in an unconditioned Arizona bedroom to cold calling brands for sponsorships, to now when they have a full team and are interfacing with brands that know what podcasting is and why it's worth investing in. They also speak to what makes sports podcasting uniquely entertaining, proposing that in a world where divisiveness is widespread, the friendly competition and camaraderie of sports is all the more important. Special thanks to SiriusXM for facilitating this particular interview. Next up, creators rethink revenue mix in anticipation of economic slump. In the shadow of new tariffs, both realized and delayed, content creators are shifting how they plan on earning money long term. Twitch streamers and social media influencers tell Digiday they plan to shift away from focusing donations and subscriptions, which platforms take a cut of, and prioritize ad revenue and longer brand deals instead of flash-in-the-pan sponsorships. And, as Crystal Scanlon's Digiday piece on tariff anxiety demonstrates, social media and digital mediums like podcasts are more likely to weather the storm of an uncertain economic climate. Next up, IEB Podcast Upfront moves back to September. This year, the Podcast Upfront is going back to its roots. Since 2021, the Podcast Upfront has taken place in May alongside IEB New Fronts. This year, it's scheduled to take place September 30th, moving back to the fall like the first 6 years of the Podcast Upfront. A representative tells Inside Audio Marketing the decision helps meet the scheduling needs and preferences of podcast producers and ad buyers. The Upfront has also been the venue through which an annual IEB podcast advertising report has debuted, though a 2025 edition of that report has not been announced. It is also not clear who is participating in the September version of the Upfront. Finally, Giggly Squad in the extremely parasocial world of podcast girlies. An overview of how modern podcasts harness the medium's ability to foster parasocial relationships with audiences. So-called manosphere discussion podcasts tend to court young men looking for male role models offering self-improvement tips, while woman-focused chat shows like Giggly Squad or Call Her Daddy aim to emulate the feeling of frank conversations with friends. Before we get into the quick hits, it's time for Coworking. This is a twice-weekly segment we have on the download where we highlight people working in the business of podcasting. Today's edition, I'd like to introduce you to Christian Swain, CEO and president of Pantheon Media. He says a key moment in his career that shaped how he approaches podcasting was when other podcasters expressed interest in joining Pantheon's network before there was a network, showing there was interest in the brand and it was more than just a single podcast. When asked about who in the industry is doing interesting work right now, Swain shouts out Gigaverse for active podcast community management. You can learn more about Swain in the full interview, which is available now on soundsprofitable.com. Link in the newsletter version and show notes of the podcast, as usual. As for the rest of the news, Magellan AI has announced a strategic partnership with Canadian national broadcaster CBC to track cross-show listener behavior and measure promotional campaign performance with Magellan AI's pod-to-pod attribution tech. Simplecast has a new blog detailing their recent integration into Headliner to allow all users the ability to create social video assets inside Simplecast. Acast has signed a new exclusive ad sales and distribution partnership with the Receipts podcast. Podcast firm Kitcaster has been acquired by digital marketing agency Moburst with intent to integrate into Moburst's PR division Uproar. And Deadline covers the announcement that Topic Studios is set to produce 200 East Main, a podcast investigating the case of Sean Williams. Be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or at soundsprofitable.com, where you can also subscribe to the newsletter version. The download is written and produced by myself, Tom Webster, and Brian Barletta. For Sounds Profitable, I'm Gavin Gaddis. Download us again tomorrow.